Our main story this morning, 6 schools in Birmingham are to be placed in special measures after an investigation into allegations of hardline Islamic extremism.
The education watchdog Ofsted inspected 21 schools in the city. A separate inquiry into the trust at the centre of the claims found that boys and girls were segregated in some classes.
Well, the Prime Minister is this morning holding a special meeting of senior cabinet ministers and his extremism task force. He's promised a robust response, as Sarah Falkland reports.
It's become known as the Trojan Horse inquiry, so called because inside some of Birmingham's schools, a small group of hardline Muslims are allegedly trying to impose their religious views. One parent has told the BBC he's worried about what's happening at his daughter's school.
In previous years, when there's been Diwali, they've studied about Diwali. When there's been Easter, there's been Easter activities. So all of those things that we were used to seeing at the school over the last 10 or 11 years seem to have been absent this year.
With 21 schools under investigation, Ofsted has never conducted an inquiry quite like this before. Inspectors are expected to exonerate 3 of them and tell 12 that they need to improve. 5 schools will be put into special measures. 1 already is. But governors say Ofsted has been deliberately trying to find fault.
They weren't there to look how good the school was doing. They're there for one purpose only, and that was to fail the school. And that's why myself as a governor, parents, teachers, pupils that work extremely hard, I mean, we're just so angry about it, because if you're going to judge us, at least judge us for the right reason.
In a further revelation, the BBC has obtained a draft report into the 3 schools run by the Parkview Educational Trust, which has been at the centre of the allegations. It says governance arrangements are inadequate, there's insufficient evidence that Parkview is welcoming to all faiths, and there are examples of segregating girls and boys in a way which could constitute less favourable treatment of girls. The Trust has strongly rejected the criticisms. The stakes couldn't be higher for all involved, though. Once inspectors have delivered their verdict, there'll be statements in Parliament about what's happened in Birmingham and what the government plans to do about it. Sarah Falkland, BBC News.
Well, our political correspondent Chris Mason has more from Downing Street for us this morning. Morning, Chris. Is the government hoping to take back ownership of this issue after all the sort of inter-cabinet rows we had last week?
Yeah, it's been a very awkward weekend for the government, with these rows bubbling on that first broke out on the day of the Queen's speech last Wednesday. This morning, the Home Secretary and the Education Secretary will meet here in Downing Street with the Prime Minister and others, sitting around the table together after that almighty spat between them, sparked by these allegations in Birmingham. The Prime Minister says he takes these allegations incredibly seriously. That's why he wanted to assemble these senior ministers this morning to talk about it. He's going to hear from the Education Secretary, who's been talking to the Chief Inspector of Schools to try and work out if it would be feasible to have no-notice inspections, to send those inspectors from the organisation Ofsted into school with no notice at all, because they've concluded that in the instances that they've looked at in Birmingham, it made a big difference phoning up the schools with half an hour's notice to effectively say, we're on our way, we'll be with you shortly, as opposed to being given a couple of days' notice where they might be able to hide things and cover things up. So a huge amount at stake politically for education in Birmingham as well. Michael Gove, the Education Secretary, facing questions in the Commons this afternoon.
OK, Chris, thanks very much. Chris Mason in Downing Street there. Later on the programme this morning, we'll be talking to a governor at one of the 21 schools that Ofsted's been investigating. That's in just over an hour from now.
In the last few minutes, gunfire has reportedly